the consumer also will have to be protected.
I agree.
And if you look at the gradual reduction in terms of the quantum, and this time only affecting only a certain section of residential users, that also puts it into perspective that despite our finances, the bigger issues of the losses within the sector, the debt, etc., would have to be handled at that level. But consumers then will get some kind of reprieve. Of course, even though they'll be affected one way or the
Definitely
other
they'll be
through
affected.
the value chain.
Yeah.
First of all, Roland, I can appreciate my brother's intent to cuddle matters. And by so doing, he keeps massaging, disassociating the party, his government, from the measures that have been put in place by the PRC.
Is it not because the PRC is an independent body?
I beg your pardon, I'll explain that. The manifesto of the MPP was not written by ECG. It was not written by the PRC. It was not written by the Energy Commission. It was written by the MPP and possibly the current head of economic management team, Dr. Baumia. And in that manifesto, on page 13B, they stated in clear terms that the MPP will reduce electricity tariffs and provide relief for households and industries. I believe strongly that when they were writing this manifesto, the PURC today, that they intend putting blame on, was not part and parcel of this manifesto writing process. In fact, in 2015, when Malam Baumia woke up in the morning and wrote on Twitter,
you mean Dr.
that
Mahmoud
absolutely, Dr. Baumia wrote on Twitter that electricity tariffs will be reduced should the MPP, I beg your pardon, win power at the time, and said vote for change. It wasn't the PURC CEO who wrote that. It was Dr. Baumia, who today has become a chapel head, jumping from one church to church, forcing Jesus Christ to accept him, and ignoring things he promised the people of this country, instead of working hard to salvage the situation. So that disassociation cannot hold, and I'll explain further. Two, in an attempt to explain what Lifeline consumers are, Roland, let me make this education clear. That 30% they keep making public, 30%, is neither here nor there.
Why
a
not?
Lifeline consumer is somebody who consumes 20 cedis, in fact, 19.38 cedis worth of power in 1 month before man and God. I know Dennis doesn't buy easy light because
You
probably
cannot, yeah,
the
that's
state,
not fair.
I mean, he's a presidential staffer,
it
the
can
state
never be
provides these
true.
amenities.
It can never be true.
However, tell me the number of people who today in this country, they will call in, use 20 Ghana cedis worth of light in 1 month, because the meters are programmed in such a way that they recalibrate after 30 days. And so there's nothing like a weekly consumption of which he was making analysis of 1 hour and light for 30 minutes. There's nothing like that. It is 30 days. And a Lifeline person uses 19.38 pesos. Tell me the number of Ghanaians that fall within this band. And the band is 0 to 30. Tell me how many? Less than 10%. Even your mobile phone, if you want to charge it consistently for 1 month, you will use more than 20 cedis in charging it. How much do we even pay to charge our mobile phones at the marketplaces? So there is nothing like that. 30%. The majority of callers are going to call in because they will be affected. This increment will affect them, and they have the right to vent their anger. The third point is that he has made assertions to the fact that we must put in place measures for collecting revenue from consumers.
But is it not the responsibility
That is
of
not the reason for the
PRC
increment.
setting the rate, and then subsequently ECG
It
as the
has no
distributor?
business with this current tariff increment. Read the PRC letter. There is nothing like technical errors. There's nothing like administrative errors in there. Now, if you increase tariffs and they still do not collect fees from users, how does that affect the tariff rate in this country? In fact, how does increment of tariff support the collection of revenue from consumers? How? It has no basis. It has no bearing in this particular context. The PURC has given us 3 lines, and I'll explain them clearly. These are purely energy matters. Probably that's why I didn't want to go into them.
What do you mean by that, please?
The PURC has spoken about the WACOG and the purchase of gas. In their report, they estimated a cost of $8 per MMTU. If you look at Sankofa, that the NDC brought into force. Sankofa sells at a rate of $6 per MMTU. And if you remember, quite recently, the Deputy Communication Officer for the NPP and PRO for Ghana Gas was here throwing documents all over and misrepresenting facts, lying blatantly to the public and all of you. The PURC estimates a slight increment in the cost of purchase of gas. And so, in their view, they felt that they should increase tariffs to beef up the surplus. The second point they made assertions to, which doesn't hold, is the thermal hydro mix. Now, IES and the Energy Commission, and I think some of these things, the PURC needs to leave it to the technical regulator. That's the Energy Commission. The Energy Commission has estimated that hydro will come on board with about 35% of production. In the WACC and WAPT estimation of the PURC, they estimate at 29%, which means that there's going to be more purchase of gas to fuel our thermal plants, which the IES and Energy Commission refutes. Because, in fact, based on what the IES even states, we would have about 38% of hydro coming on board. Because at the beginning of the year, we had about 271 meters increment in the hydro levels at Akosombo. And so, now that we've had enough rainfall throughout the year, it should beef up the situation. And so that assertion that they will use estimations based on the first quarter, that was 29% coming on board, does not hold and does not form a basis, a legitimate basis for this particular increment. The third point is the IMF. And that is where I want to draw his attention to. When Kaselato Forsen made it known to the Ghanaian people that due to their reckless borrowing, reckless expenditure, and mismanagement of the economy,
what has the IMF got to do?
The IMF has given us a condition that there should be a quarterly adjustment of electricity tariffs in order to cater and beef up our revenue corridors in this country. So, if we do not attain a certain revenue corridor, the IMF will not dole out the second tranche of money that we are supposed to receive from them. And that was announced in the PURC's August letter. In fact, if you read this particular letter, they made it
but Malik, we all know
let me explain this.
As a state and a government, once we've gone to the IMF, we have to meet certain conditions.
Why did we go to the IMF?
If also you relate to sources within the PURC,
you made him flow.
There are issues of cross subsidies at the end of the day that needs to be brought to some level of parity. And I think that we all need to accept that. It's under the whole point.
Subsidies are being catered for by tax they imposed on us. Are you aware that there's a new energy sector tax of which you pay 20 pesos for? That was to cater for their subsidies during the period of COVID-19. So it has nothing to do with this particular increment. I am telling you that they took us to the IMF because of their reckless expenditure and mismanagement of the economy. The IMF told them, and in the agreement they signed, that there's going to be a quarterly adjustment of tariffs in order to beef up that revenue. And that is why we are struggling today. So if Dennis attempts that in every clause he puts out, or in every sentence he puts out, he says during the NDC, there were tariff adjustments. Every adjustment due during the tenure of the NDC was guaranteed and was explained properly. If you remember, the latest adjustment was because we had brought in power batches. And that was how come we instituted the energy sector levy. By that being, tariffs had to go up in order to pay for power batches that we had bought on credit. Those contracts were even supposed to expire within 5 years of duration. If you remember Ameri, where they have come today and extended for about 15 years and nearly even duped the country of, that particular resource. And so every tariff adjustment during our tenure was well defined, and the latest was to cater for the power batches that had been brought into force. But today, your tariff adjustments are simply because of your reckless spending, simply because we are the doorsteps of the IMF, simply because the IMF has held us to choke and is expecting that we collect enough revenues to beef up our electricity corridors. In other words, Roland, are you aware that we still have over 500 million sitting in the accounts of PDS? He spoke about dissuading politicians from this. Who were the group of people who brought on board PDS? To the extent that the minister had to declare it fraudulent. We had secretaries, we had ministers who were serving on that board today. One of them is even a deputy minister, was serving on the PDS board. They collected over 500 million into their accounts. Tell them what they have done with it. Why are they not using that to beef up the surpluses in the energy sector? And to land on this point, to just explain this, the PURC has made assertions and continuously does that to excess capacity. I want to bring this to finality. There are three components that make up capacity generation in this country. We have the total capacity, we have available capacity, and the surplus capacity becomes a component of available capacity. Just in January, our total available capacity was about 3,820 megawatts. At peak season, the country needed about 3,500 megawatts to run the country. There was a little surplus of about 380 megawatts. That is what you call excess capacity. However, under our statutory laws, there's supposed to be a surplus of about 18 to 20%, of which even that 380 megawatts does not fail. And if you remember, quite recently, there was a shortfall of about 150 megawatts where the whole country had to be plunged into darkness. If you remember, quite recently, because we did not have enough surplus to even beef it up. And so, if the intent, I have heard the minister, this one not Dennis, he's not an energy person, the minister himself has made assertions to the fact that we are going through these challenges because of excess capacity. And so I thought that we should clarify that. In conclusion, this tariff adjustment, more will come soon. This is just a revision in another quarter. On a quarterly basis, every 4 months, we'll have an adjustment. And so Ghanaians should be ready that amidst a skyrocketing dollar rate in this country, where we are changing for about 11.5, amidst high inflation rates of 43%.
But Malik, I have to be sincere with you. Yesterday, I spoke with some individuals within the PRC. And if you look at the rate at which the adjustment is ongoing, they are even predicting there may not likely be some incremental adjustment for the last quarter.
It is not possible.
Okay. You don't work at the PRC. You see, no, the point is that you don't work at the PRC.
And the point is that...
It's okay. No, Malik, that's okay.
The IMF has stated clearly that there will be adjustments.
At the end of the day, if you look at the spectrum that we're making considerations for, and these are consumers. Of course, we have what the energy sector levy and the debt is at the end of it, and those are being catered for with agreements with the IPPs and the finance ministry. You think Malik is going too far with this?
I think the NDC consistently and over the years, they are just confident tricksters. And you see his energy and all his rants. You couldn't even keep the electricity on in the first place when you had a chance.
So you mean during their time?
No, go on.
Malik, when you were talking.
Yeah, go on.
Let's be civil.
Yeah,
but you see the energy and all those things, and Ghanaians are watching. They are even laughing, and they look at these guys and they wonder, what are they made of? It's like when they wake up in the morning, they have their own scripts, and then, what is a bed? If I don't know what a bed is, well, a bed sleeps on the tree, therefore a tree is. What is all this rant about? What is all this noise about? In one vein, you refer to the PURC letter. And I thought you were going to go into the PURC letter and actually tell us, because the claim he sought to make is to tell us that the point I was making was wrong, and that the PURC indicated the reason why they are making the increase. And then you leave that, and you also talk about something that is not in the PURC letter. Did the PURC mention anything on IMF?
No, they did.
Did the PURC tell you that they've increased tariffs for everybody? So you are peddling falsehood. You are misinforming the public, and you do it with so much confidence and energy. It is not true that Ghanaians should expect more increase. It is false. It is also not true that even in this particular regime of tariff increase, every Ghanaian has been increased. That is also false. You are here without any data, with your emotions, determining the number of people that buy 20 cedis, 90 cedis. Go to Teshi, go to Nungwa. Somebody's electricity that he's buying for the whole month is 20 cedis. A lot more Ghanaians. You think everybody is like you? You live in East Airport. You live in the Chado area, the neighborhood they created. Go and check. Just 100 meters from their neighborhood, in the Chado area, people are buying 15 cedis electricity. People are buying 10 cedis electricity.
For the month? Yes.
You don't discount them. They are a lot more than you. And so you sit here and you think that 20 cedis is so small, so it is not somebody's electricity bill. But the PURC has the data. They have the information. And Roland, you see, for me, I prefer to stick to the issues and do the education than the ranting. What is the PURC talking about?
And you're referring to their letter?
Yeah.
Which is very comprehensive.
Three objectives. The second objective reads, to reduce the cross-subsidization between industrial customers and residential customers. This is to address the high electricity cost for industrial customers. This is to address the high electricity cost for industrial customers, which has been repeatedly identified in the AGI Business Barometer as a key challenge affecting the competitiveness of Ghanaian businesses in the global marketplace. Thus, This reduction will support the growth and competitiveness of industry, and as part of a significant contribution towards Ghana industrialization drive and enhance opportunities. Roland, in his conversation, did he tell the people, when he said he was going to refer to the letter, that industries' tariff have actually been positively affected by this change? Did he tell the people?
No, he didn't.
Has anybody mentioned it? But you read what the PURC is saying.
I did explain earlier.
He wants us to talk about PURC. But PURC is telling you that tariff review doesn't necessarily mean upward review. Maybe he is an energy expert, but I understand English. Probably better. That is why I know that when you say tariff review, you are not necessarily talking about increase. And so in this same tariff review, PURC has positively affected the tariffs of industries. And their reason is that it was to boost industries. It was to respond to concerns by the Association of Ghana Industries to help build the same economy that we are trying to recover. But he's deceiving the public. He's misinforming the public. So he fails to talk about it. I am sure when he referred to the PURC letter, later he realized that if he go for that letter, he would be embarrassed. Look at the third objective. They say to ensure that the utilities are financially viable, to sustain supply of services, while reducing the burden on consumers, especially Lifeline customers. This is an English station, so I don't need to interpret it so much.
Not at all.
But the PURC is telling you that we are doing this tariff adjustment for 3 reasons, 2 of which are positive. One is to ensure that we reduce the tariffs for industries so that the burden on them would go down so that it can boost industrialization. 2, it is to ensure that the poor of the poorest in this country, the Ghanaian who is using 3 bulbs, who is using 1 iron, who is using 1 fan, who is using 1 fridge, okay, for a certain number of hours within the day, would be able to use his electricity without the tariffs being affected. If you are living in East Airport, for which reason you don't see 20 cedis to be significant, why are you talking about it? Why are you discounting it? Why are you downplaying it? Why don't you leave it for the person that is affected? That is not all. They went on to say this, and I'm doing all of this because he referred to the letter. Tariff decision. The Commission, after extensive deliberation and analysis, has approved no increments, 0 change in end-user electricity tariffs for Lifeline customers, industrial customers, and non-residential customers. Roland, non-residential customers are these: hairdressing salons, barbering shops, chop bars, tailoring and dressmaking, cold stores, and other small and medium-scale businesses, effective September 1st. For the records, for the purposes of facts, for the purpose of truth, avoiding emotions and ranting, this is the tariff change that PURC has introduced. PURC, they do not increase tariffs for all of this category of people. It is not up to you to come and sit on TV and be determining what you think is realistic and not realistic. It is about the category within which I fall, the category within which you fall, and you are the one who referred to the Roland, we are not going to allow people to, as a result or in pursuit of their parochial political interest, mix up the issues and try to put out falsehood. Talk about whatever you want to talk about, but when we are done, we'll put the facts as it is. It is not your statistics that we are using. It is the data as it pertains in the systems and usage of consumers that we are talking about. He tells me that the inefficiencies and the inability to collect revenue of the utility services has no bearing on this increase. Listen to what the PURC says. They are saying that one of the reasons why they are increasing tariffs is to ensure that these utilities are financially viable to sustain the services. Why do you think they need the financial viability? It is because the amount of money they need to be able to run their institution, they don't have. Don't you think that the 30% or 40%, whichever statistics they throw about, that they are losses, that they are unable to collect, if they were collecting them, they will probably affect us positively in terms of how much percentage increase or how much money they need to be able to keep the services. The good news about the current situation is that whilst we are having increase, we have the power and the water flowing.
To use.
During their period, after all the rants, after all his expertise and energy, after all the emotions, when they were in government, whilst we did not have the power, they were still increasing tariffs. How dare you? How dare you sit on national TV this early morning, come talk about tariff increase when we have electricity. How dare you? Roland, if we are comparing performance, especially when it comes to energy, we'll compare two things. We'll compare the service availability and we'll compare the cost. Let's even assume that we are leveled up when it comes to cost because you were increasing it in the midst of the chaos, at least under this government. And I didn't want to go, you realize that when I started my conversation, I didn't want to go down the line of trying to, because I know in my deepest of heart that when it comes to utility services, we should not blame it on anybody. We should go to the utility services company and get them to be efficient. But he's brought it on. How dare you? You were increasing tariffs for us when we didn't have the power. Today, in 2016, by this time, when we leave this studio and we step out, we are going to call our homes to ask them if the light has gone off. And then, if today is Wednesday, the next time you expect electricity is Friday morning. And then it will go off Saturday evening. People died on hospital beds. People's cold stores collapsed. People's barbering shops collapsed because they didn't have the electricity to even run it, for them to even pay more. Hairdressers had to lock up their shops because there was not even electricity for them to power their hair dryers, for them to even pay more. In fact, in 2016, a lot of Ghanaians would have wished to be paying more so they have the electricity than when they were paying and they didn't have the electricity. NDC should just shut up and let us enjoy our electricity and let us work with the utility services company, hold them to account and get them to be more efficient. But you dare not. Malik, you dare not talk about utility services in this country. Shut up already and let's run our country.
At the end of the day, the PRC says that the honors and the responsibility, and I'm not reading this from the statement because I spoke to some individuals within the PRC, that also lies with ECG as a main distributor to be able to collect enough sums. What they do have, though, is the difficulties with making actual the agreement to have with the finance minister for the IPPs to be paid. On the other hand, also, the IPPs are also happy that at least ECG is able to make tranches of payment to them based on the revenue mobilization drive they've undertaken. Now, does that then give us any comfort? Because it should, knowing that ordinary users, per what the PRC is indicating, like hairdressers, etc., will be enjoying some level of comfort within the period.
First of all, ECG, through ESLA, collected about 3 billion into ESLA cafes. President Akufo-Addo and your boss, Dr. Bawumia, took that money, used it as collateral, and went to borrow and refused to pay for energy sector.
You mean securitized?
Absolutely.
Okay.
1. 2, through the institution of your ESLA PLC, that we had 20 pesos in addition to energy sector levies. President Akufo-Addo, again, used that monies to go and borrow more and refuse to pay for our debts, together with your boss, Dr. Bawumia. And today, you sit here and tell ECG to go and keep collecting. In fact, when you people sat down and created a fraudulent PDS, brought it and duped the people of this country, collected over 600 million in the name of ECG. ECG has been begging you for more than 3 years today to give them even 200 million of those collections. Have you done that? Have you done that? You sit here and you are shouting, how dare you? How dare you? 1 minute of reading would have solved his problem. And let me just educate him. Read the first sentence of the PRC letter. It said, in conformity, the adjustment is in conformity to its quarterly review of tariffs announced in August. What was the announcement in August? Due to revenue mobilization shortfalls, based on the IMF's reportage and the agreement that was to be signed, they needed to beef up our revenue corridors. The second part was that government cafes was empty. The country was bankrupt because
he's saying the PRC has not made allusions to that.
And I'm teaching you English, so please let him listen. Please, Roland, let me flow on this. I beg you, with the greatest of respect. I'm telling you that in English, you don't necessarily have to repeat, Roland said this, Roland said this. So if I write a letter and I don't say Roland said this, and I say he, alluding to you, you should know that it's you. And that is why they tagged this letter onto their August release. So to clarify this, bring on their August release and read it. You understand what they were pegging this letter onto. This is simple language. And he claimed he understands English. I thought that he would understand this in the barest minimum. What we are saying is that your government has recklessly borrowed Your government has recklessly spent. And today, the Ghanaian poor taxpayer, bringing on board 43% inflation, hyper dollar rates, unemployment, lack of payment of salaries. And I cite an example. Today, you pretentiously want to fight for the Ghanaian worker. NSS personnel, for 4 good months, have not been paid. Now, let me cite a practical example.
Which is
this NSS personnel is going to be affected by this increment because there is no way you will survive with 20 Ghana cedis a month electricity tariff. This NSS personnel next week is going to suffer with increment in cost of transportation. This NSS personnel is going to suffer with a food basket inflation of 43%. This NSS personnel is still not being paid by your wicked government. And today you sit here and you are shouting, how dare you? Who fixed them so? In other words, when you were asked who fixed them so, when your minister, not you, your minister was asked who fixed them so, and to tell us a single megawatt that was brought on board, could you do that? You sat on air and alluded to the fact that John Dramani Mahama and the NDC solved Dumso because we have a practical explanation as to how Dumso was solved. In 2007, when there was a shortfall, okay, of electricity supply in this country, what did your government do? You went around and looked for pastors from Suhum, Apega, Tema Community 1, and carried them to Akosombo Dam to go and put their hands and pray for the dam. That's so that we get water and Dumso will be solved. They Kofo to get boss, Kofo. Took the pastors, it is online to Akosombo from Suhum and Apega to go and pray. John Mahama came and said, Dumso is not a spiritual problem. It's a technical one. So we brought car power, we brought Ameri, we brought power batches and beefed up megawatts in this country, electricity generation megawatts in this country to about 5,000 megawatts. What have you done in the resolution of Dumso? You have come on board. You have met all these free things. And the first thing you even thought of doing was to corrupt a power batch President Mahama brought. Ameri, the president, took a pen and paper and they sat down and dubiously planned how to dupe and rob the state, ballooned a contract that was 510 million to 1.3 million. When the president was stripped naked, he was exposed. Again, as the mother serpent of corruption, he sat there and said he was misled and that he wasn't reading, he wasn't thinking right. That was why he intended duping the state of this country. These are things we should be talking about. And so, look, Roland, we can decide to act jittery. You can decide to rant. You can decide to say all you want to say. But the reality is that you are dipping us to pay for your mess. Today, the Ghanaian youth who wakes up is thinking of how he's going to pay these taxes and is worried because the president in initial past was using 14,000 pounds to fly a private jet, free, to go and watch for a Liverpool Hotspurs, a Champions League match between Liverpool Hotspurs and Tottenham FC. But the president, in most recent past, I beg your pardon, was traveling with
Malik,
a fleet
if you
of
read the
30
PRC letter,
V8s.
If you read the PRC letter, it makes no allusion to consumption and then also availability of power 5 years ago or 10 years ago, etc. So you know, when we're doing the discussion,
Roland, in the PRC letter, I have given you the 4 pointers.
Yeah, you have.
I did that.
And importing some other facts.
And I explained, first of all, I explained the hydrothermal mix on this platform. Sure. He wasn't listening. And that is why next time I expect that he listens. No, so if he was, you would have known I explained it to him. I explained the dollar rate. Can you listen? I explained the dollar rate. He wasn't listening. If he had listened, he would have learnt.
Listen, we've opened the phone line. Consumers can come in.
He wasn't listening. If he was listening, he would have said, all these components, together with gas prices, are components regulated by the government and the economic management team. Tell me, it is here. Which of them? Is it inflation that's not regulated by them?
What is it? The letter?
Yes, the letter. Okay. Tell me, is it the dollar rate that is not managed by them? Is it a dollar rate that is not regulated by them? Are you telling me the economic management team are a bunch of headless chickens sitting there?
For the sake of your viewers.
You should understand this.
For the sake of your viewers. For the sake of your viewers.
Can you allow me, when you were speaking aloud,
please conclude on that.
To conclude on this point, the Ghanaian youth are saying that we will not bear for the reckless expenditure, the reckless mismanagement, and the incompetence of your government. And so this tariff adjustment must be looked at.
Good morning to you,
sir. Reviewed in the shortest possible time.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Please be decorous in your language. Yes. What do you have to say about?
This from Wali Wali. Yes, I think that government has to do something about the quarterly adjustment of the tariff. In fact, it's affecting us a lot. And for me, there is nothing like Lifeline consumers. If there is any, we the people in Wali, we should be part of it. And I'm telling you that we pay high tariff here in Wali. Even we can pay 1,000 Ghana cedis, 700 Ghana cedis. So if we people who are in the north, especially Wali people are paying 700 and then 1,000 Ghana cedis per month, and you are saying Lifeline, I think that we should have been included.
What's your name, sir?
It's just a term that they use to confuse us.
What is your name, sir? What is your name? What is your name?
My name is Shani.
Okay, is it not true that if you spend 1,000 Ghana cedis on electricity, you don't fall within the category? You're really not within the Lifeline consumption pattern, right?
There's 20 Ghana cedis. People who spend 20 Ghana cedis. And I want to say that there is nobody in Ghana who pays 20 Ghana cedis per tariff.
Point made there. Point made there. Okay, thank you. You wanted to say. We're receiving more phone calls, so the lines are open.
What I want to do this morning is to try and stick to the issues and ignore all these needless importation of scripts into the conversation. The August release that he referred to, nowhere in the PURC August release did they talk about IMF being the reason. You know that this country, the PURC had always had a formula and a way of adjusting tariffs in this country, and they do it periodically. And so when they introduced this one in August, they indicated that instead of slapping the entire rates,
those spread it over time.
Exactly.
Within the year.
So when you come and sit,
but then is that a conclusion that they said quarterly?
No, that's not the point I'm making.
Because we reported on
that.
The
gentleman is telling you and your viewers that the IMF said that they are doing this as a result of the PUS said they are doing it as a result of the IMF. I said it's a lie, it's false, it's not true. You understand? And it's important that the viewers who probably did not listen to the August one will know that it's not true. And this needless, completely out of range things that you try to import into such an important conversation.
We have Abubakar. Abubakar.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, hello.
Where are you calling from, Abubakar?
I'm calling from Border Central.
Yes, please, make your comment, and then your language should be savory.
Lifeline consumers, they can get credit within 50 CD and 20 CD. I'm just telling him that what he's saying is not true. Because currently, in those days, we used to buy 50 units within 19 Ghana CD. Now, when you are going to buy 15 units, you get it at the rate of 80 Ghana CD. So, buying credit within 15 CD, I don't know where he's buying his own credit. That's 15 CD, you can't even purchase a credit to use for one day.
Abubakar.
So they get, yes, sir.
Is it not true that if you look at consumption pattern of some categories of consumers, they don't fall within the category we call Lifeline? Because people are now using air conditions, it's on for many hours of the day. Apart from,
for instance, I don't have air conditioning. I only have fan with my TV, with my home theater. And I almost buy 80 Ghana cedi a month. I don't share my meter with anybody.
How much do you buy a month, for example?
I buy 72 Ghana cedi. And it doesn't reach 30 days off. Within 2-3 weeks, it's off.
And you use an iron, you use a fridge.
Of course.
And
I don't have a fridge.
He doesn't have a fridge. No, but
all right.
I don't have a fridge.
All right, thank you. Please, let's get more of you before we wrap up this morning. So we'll put a statement again, so everybody then gets a certain clear picture, because the PRC has categorized those who have been affected by the latest increment. And again, at the beginning of this discussion, I did lay it out. Of course, Dennis was not in, so I put in that caveat that the PRC, based on not only the statement but also those I've spoken to within there, did indicate that certain categories of residential consumers will be affected by this 4.2%. Now, if you go to, can we go to the tariff discussion? So, okay. So they say that the commission, after extensive deliberation analysis, has approved a no increment or change by way of the percentage in end user electricity tariff for Lifeline customers. All right. Now, industrial
Industries.
consumers
Yes.
and non-residential consumers. So, and non-residential consumers, so you could be located in a residential area, but you're categorized as a non-residential consumer because of you having a hairdressing salon, a barbering shop, chop bar, tailoring shop, dressmaking shop, cold store, small-time cold store operators, and other small and medium-scale businesses. And many of them will not necessarily be located in industrial enclave. So the PRC does make that categorization for all of us to indicate. And as always, they also say the commission is guided in a decision by the ultimate interest of consumers. All right. So can we take one more call? Is it possible?
Can I?
Okay.
Yeah, Roland, you see, the Lifeline consumers,
yes.
I've explained it.
You're saying that it's not a realistic target.
Must be made clear. Don't sit and say Babes, this, or don't say somebody uses this.
You are saying that this
20
category of people
cedis,
use more than
19.38 cedis. That is what you consume in a month to fall within 0 to 30 band. As simple as that. And a lot of people call it. Ask yourself, he doesn't buy light. I keep saying it.
He
doesn't
buys
understand.
lights.
They sit there
That's a very unfair statement to make. He doesn't live in a government bungalow, so
he's
you
an
can't
appointee.
make
They
that.
don't buy light. They sit at the cubicle there, share monies like granite. Ask people, let your callers call
Malik,
you and tell us how
you cannot say they share money like that.
No, okay,
Malik
that's fine.
Basintali is a deputy communication
Roland,
officer of the NDC.
Too much.
And then also Dennis Miracle Sabwaje.
No, today you are being too mischievous. Why are you defending a miracle in this matter?
Oh, I'm not defending Miracle.
Today you are supporting him.
So
let me don't do this.
I have
today.
Frederick Sechi.
You are not being fair.
Oh, he says. So Frederick Sechi has sent a messages. Kwame Sapong, Hajia Muntaka, Sly Gariba, and then God says ECG don't read meters monthly, and Dennis and all of us here say that's the responsibility of ECG. All right, and so I think we all agree that ECG has distributed. Yeah, we're done. Okay.
We have gone off.
We've not gone off. Dennis, wrap up.
I want to wish my mother, Mrs. Safari Donko.
Mrs. Safari Donko,
yes.
Your real mother?
No, she's
your mother.
my mother. Mrs. Safari Donko, a very warm, happy birthday. May God bless her. May God give her long life. And for her to live up to 200 years for us. She's a very sweet woman, and I need her alive for a very, very long time. Yes. The longer she lives, the better for the generations after us. Yes.
Dennis Miracle Abwaje is in the camp of DMB. It is possible, 2024. We're taking a break, right back.